Welcome to episode 15 of the White Whale Marketing Podcast. It's in collaboration with the Sport Marketeer, which is a sports newsletter that we write here at White Whale Marketing that launches every Friday around midday to afternoon, and it gets sent directly to your mailbox or your inbox, I should say. And from there, you can kind of really have today's topics in written form, have it sent directly to you, and maybe you can have a better understanding and maybe sound a little smarter in your next meeting, or even maybe say something at dinner that kind of sparks conversation. But with that, today we have Caleb, one of our White Whale Marketing team members, joining us. Thanks, Caleb. And always, I'll introduce our few topics, and we'll get going. And as always, it just kind of goes from there. So, our three topics today. The first one is New Jersey's New Jersey. The second one is FC Barcelona joins League of Legends. And last but not least, Nike's always doing it. So with that, they've introduced Nike Land as a partnership with Roblox, so that game there. So that's something that should be of interest. It's saying we're having a little issue here with Twitch, but that should be fine. Anyways, so with that, usually we would kind of just get right into our first topic, but if you guys haven't noticed, it's episode 15, and you may be thinking, hey, that's not too interesting of a number, right? It's not round, it's not big, but fun fact, 90% of podcasts don't get to episode 15. So in that in itself is, a little tap on the back to us who, I think, Caleb's been a part of it, AJ Harral. Unfortunately, AJ, considering he's a student, he's writing a paper, and Harral has to, be working tonight at his other position. But yeah, no, I think that's a cool thing to kind of share where we're in that top percentile now with that. And even though it's not, Joe Rogan's podcast, I find it's a great space for us to kind of chime in on some different ideas, kind of get the brain flowing. And even people have chimed in, maybe sound a little smarter, as I was saying at the dinner table. But yeah, it's good stuff. And we can see too with each episode it is growing a bit more, and last week's Canada Soccer episode seemed to be a hit. So Caleb, I guess it's up to us to kind of keep the numbers going today. So as promised, our first topic is New Jersey, as I said. So for those that are unaware, the New Jersey Devils within the NHL, wrong one, within the NHL, they launched in New Jersey. So you can see that here. And it literally just says Jersey on it. So that kind of has caused a storm on the internet. People are like, wait, what is this? Is this real? And, clearly if the team has launched it, they kind of did a full-blown photo shoot. It is real. People are having fun with it. The team's having fun with it, where even kind of, I think on Twitter, they posted an image of just a black hat with the same font that just said hat on it as a joke. So, yeah, Caleb, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on maybe your first impressions of this jersey if you've seen it online already this week.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, congratulations on the 15th episode. Big mark. Should be proud of yourself and the whole brand. But yeah, no, I remember seeing this jersey earlier this week, and it definitely caught my eye. I don't know whose eye it didn't catch, just for obvious reasons. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting jersey. I heard it's the Devils' first ever kind of third jersey. We've seen the reverse retros where they go back to the green colorways and the dark colorways. But this seems like just fresh kind of New Jersey. And one positive thing I'll say is it definitely got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I think they kind of succeeded on that, if that's what one of their goals was. But no, I thought it's definitely kind of a unique way. Obviously, they do tie it into New Jersey. It has Jersey on it. And they do have like some significance behind it. I know they have their cups on like the back of the jersey, the years they won.
Like the years, right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah. And they've had some, I know, they have like, I think it's like the string of it is made out of hockey tape or hockey laces. A couple like interesting nods. But overall, I mean, I don't hate it, the colorway. I think the jersey kind of makes it a bit of a joke per se, but to be honest, I think it's getting more hate than it deserves.
Yeah, I think like there's so many things to kind of touch on here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right, where it is different, right? And I think in regards of a third jersey, and I'm sure the marketing team and the branding was all involved in that. It's doing its job, right? It's not really within like, hey, this is our historic or classic logo, but it's, hey, like, how can we get the attention of new fans or even just other people to kind of talk about our brand, kind of do something a little different, right? That's usually what a third jersey is. And look, like you're saying, you're not wrong. It's completely different than what they've done in the past, where they've always kind of gone back to maybe just going back to previous colors or tweaking things a little bit here and there. And to be honest, my first impressions when I saw this was, I think this will strike a chord with maybe more streetwear type of fans, right? Because if you think of Off-White or even just, to be honest, I don't even know that many streetwear brands anymore as I did in university. But, that's kind of thing with Off-White where they're writing, shoes or carpet or keep off carpet, right? And considering their name or the place they're from is Jersey and it is a jersey, it's kind of funny, right? And I can see people buying this. They're like, hey, you know what? Hockey sweaters are pretty cool and fashionable. Why not like toss this on as well? And the black slick, I find it kind of emulates I think the Blackhawks had a Winter Classic jersey with the black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. So I think that's cool. But then, I think one of my issues with it, I think obviously it does. Some people are like, hey, this is ugly. It shouldn't have been released. Here or there. But I think it's job of actually, creating some type of stir. I think that's spot on. That's something they should be doing. And I think more people and more leagues and clubs should be doing it as well. Because what's the point of being so serious all the time, right? Like, it's great to have, his history behind it, but why not have a little fun? The one thing on that point, though, that I do not like, it's a fun jersey. But when you see this graphic here, they're trying to make it sound serious. Let's be honest. It's not that serious, right? Like, no one really came up with this. And they're saying, Martin Brodeur kind of helped design it. He wasn't that serious. Like, you can't be that serious for like, hey, like, this is a masterpiece, right? But then to kind of maybe cover their ass a bit, they're kind of going, hey, like 21 stripes, the crest, the interior collared championship, the laces, blah, blah, blah. Why not just say, hey, it's a jersey. It looks kind of cool. It's a little different. Let's kind of go from there. But, yeah, I think I have one more image there, Nico Heischer. But, yeah, do you have any other kind of remaining comments about that?
Yeah. If you just want to go back to the other picture there that you just had up. Yeah. Something I was just kind of reading it, and two things. First of all, to add on to your point, it says like 21 white stripes for the 21 counties that make up New Jersey, 5 stripes on the left shoulder above the heart. These kind of feel like a little bit of a stretch. Like you said, just to add on to make it a little more significant in some way. I mean, if I was a Devils fan, I'd probably be happy, but as a hockey fan, you can see it's a bit of a stretch, especially with the tradition is everything. But my main thoughts is kind of it doesn't look almost like a hockey jersey, right?
No.
Looks, you don't really see a lot of hockey jerseys just kind of having jersey or like the name on the front of it. And part of me likes that because it kind of makes hockey, you're going into a new area. You're going into new kind of territory where there hasn't really been hockey teams experimenting like that. You see a lot of experimental jerseys in basketball, right? I don't know how many jerseys they have. But
basketball is almost too much, though. I think it's one extreme to the other. One doesn't do it enough. Another one, to be honest, basketball, like, I think they almost have like 10 jerseys. It's wild. But
again, like it's kind of it. I don't hate it because, I like, as someone who's kind of a fan of jerseys, I like seeing different jerseys and creative aspects, and there's always more you can do and always changes you can make. But in hockey, where I can't say it's for sure, but it's probably one of the sports where it has the most tradition, the most, you look at the Leafs, Red Wings, Blackhawks, their jerseys haven't changed for 50, 60 years, right? Yeah. Whereas, you look at basketball, it's not necessarily the same in certain areas, but I can appreciate they're trying to do something new. They're trying to, like you said, maybe appeal to a different market, maybe kind of just, doing something that's not a traditional hockey jersey. And even though it says tradition is everything, I think it's kind of obvious that they're going a bit off the board. Sure. And I think it's one of those jerseys that you're either going to say it's very cool, I'm interested in it, it's unique, I like it, or it's pretty ugly. You're either one side or the other. And to be honest, I'm not sure which side I am on, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Hey, that's not a bad sign. And I guess the last thing I'll kind of say in regards to that is actually, I guess, just in the launch of it, I kind of would want, hopefully, I'm sure they already have their other plans made, but maybe for future reference, if, people are thinking about things. I think it'd be kind of cool if you kind of launch the jersey a little differently. So obviously I know it's a hockey team and, that's how they're going to do it, as if it's like the start of the season. They probably did it at the start of the season with those graphics. But it'd be cool if they kind of maybe, did some type of content where they're kind of pushing that streetwear angle, right? Or maybe they're going to, I don't know, Fashion Week in New York, right? That's just across the river. And they're kind of like giving them a blank jersey and they're like, hey, like, what do you think? And kind of having designers react to it, or even just having models or people that are within the industry or like influencers kind of wearing it, kind of saying, hey, what you like? Because I think hockey jerseys are one of those jerseys that you see like celebrities that aren't necessarily fans of hockey, but wearing it because it looks cool, right? So if you can kind of pull that I don't know, that non-traditional fan in by having a jersey like this, go for it. And I think if you kind of create content that's kind of pushing in a way that's not necessarily tied to hockey, but obviously because it's that jersey, it does tie it back. I think that would be cool. But yeah, those are just the final thoughts, and we can obviously get into it a bit more in tomorrow's article. But for now, let's just move on to the next topic. With that being, FC Barcelona, obviously they're primarily a soccer club, but they have other sports within them. And now one of them being they're joining of League of Legends. So they're joining the top league in Spain. I believe it's called the Superliga, and this will be within 2022. And yeah, I guess they're saying here within the article that was released on their site, it's part of their digital strategy, and the big kind of thing they're going about it is to target non-soccer fans in different markets, primarily North America, and what was the other one? I think it's South America, if I'm not mistaken, and China. No, so it's USA and China is what they're trying to target with this digital strategy. I think it's kind of interesting. It's a little, I don't know. We'll get into it, but yeah. So AJ is the one that kind of came up with this. He's going to be writing the article about it tomorrow, and the questions he's kind of asking is, what are your thoughts on these large teams or organizations starting to join esports, and how do you think that's impacting the teams that are already present there, where they're almost kind of getting, I guess in the U.S. turkey spirit or U.S. Thanksgiving turkey spirit, they're getting gobbled up, right? So what are your thoughts on big clubs like this joining esports?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a big esports fan a couple of years ago, and so I was kind of involved, researching the industry and seeing what's going on, the updates. And as a fan of something, number one thing, you always want to see it grow, you want to see it expand. And so I think I think the last 3, 4, 5 years, you have seen that whole industry grow as a whole. And it's proof right here where, Barcelona, possibly, arguably the most legendary club in the world, joining League of Legends, right? And I saw in their article, they also have other esports going with FIFA, Rocket League, and Hearthstone. I think most kind of soccer clubs have FIFA teams at this point. But no, it's great to see. I think it's another way of kind of expanding esports, and with these huge clubs and teams kind of getting into it. You see, I've seen a lot of North American kind of pro sports owners joining it and buying esports teams. And I mean, from Barcelona's standpoint, you have to respect it, right? They're trying to get into a new field, new market. And to be honest, I think it's going to pay off. I think it's a good idea for them.
Yeah. So I guess on that, when you think of payoff, what do you refer to? Because when I read this article, what was coming to mind was like, hey, FC Barcelona as a brand, right, beyond just the soccer team. I think I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah, this makes sense. It's going to help reach new audiences, different markets, and it's going to increase the value. Like we're seeing, I think Face Clan, right? They went public. I believe it was pretty recent. I think they got like an evaluation of $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously there's money there. But then when I was reading the article, the one kind of key part that stuck out, right? It was all making sense. I was like, yeah, this is great for the FCB brand. But when it finally got to this line, it was saying how they think it's going to help develop football fandom. And that's where I kind of stood back. And I'm like, is it? Right? I understand like where they see that because they're maybe trying to get non-traditional fans or non-traditional markets. But is it really going to kind of pull someone who's into esports or League of Legends to then become a soccer fan, right? I think it will kind of maybe get them a fan of, Barcelona, wearing their colors, maybe even their jerseys. But I don't think necessarily they're going to be, tuning into every match or, you know what I mean? Like kind of engaging with that type of content. It's not esports related.
I think for them, the plan is, from my perspective, one of the ways to think about it is if you get into Barcelona and if you start getting into their League of Legends esports team, without really caring about soccer, without caring about their FIFA team, you just, for whatever reason, you start liking their League of Legends team. I think then, you kind of already have a brand loyalty towards them. You already have an affection towards the brand and the club itself. And if you were to ever, and usually if you have a brand loyalty, or for me, if I'm a fan of a sports team, I don't plan on changing it, right? It's one of those things. If you're a fan of a club, it's a hard thing to change. And so I think one of their kind of ideas are, if you start with this younger generation, this 18 to 25 kind of year old group that are into League of Legends and esports, and get them interested in Barcelona, one day, if they do get into soccer, they already have a team, right? And they already have a team that they don't really need to second guess it. Barcelona, biggest club in the world, so much going on for them. Maybe not right now in terms of soccer, but in terms of a club, I think they're trying to grow overall. And if that fan ever decides to play FIFA, who are they going to choose? Barcelona. If they ever decide to watch a Champions League match, it's probably going to be Barcelona. And so kind of expanding your brand loyalty in that sense, I think it's a good idea. Obviously, I don't know how many direct fans will come from entering League of Legends. I think it's more of a long-term play, but it is definitely interesting. And to be honest, I do think it'll work. And one other kind of thing I want to add on, I saw last year Schalke, who recently got relegated from the Bundesliga, they've had like a League of Legends team for a long time. Really? And yeah, I think it was like 3, 4, 5 years. And since they got relegated, they needed to help pay for expenses, all that. They actually sold their team. And I don't know if you saw this. Yeah, their League of Legends. League of Legends. So they sold their spot for League of Legends for $30 million.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. It just kind of goes to show. Now, I'm not sure what league that was in. I don't know if it was a Spanish league, whatever. But it just goes to show, like, a spot alone is worth $30 million. There's money in it. And there's enough money for clubs like Barcelona, maybe Madrid, big name clubs. And not just football. We could be talking about, Dallas Cowboys getting into it, Los Angeles Lakers. I think if the money's in it and if there's money to be made, the clubs and pro sports teams will enter it eventually. And they'll see it as a potential opportunity they can make money, and that's it.
Yeah, you know what? That's kind of a great point that you're going at about it from, because obviously we've discussed this in the past, and it's like an endless cycle, right? As more money enters the team, whether it's from on-field performance, sponsorships, jersey sales, whatever, then it has an impact on the team, right? Because then they can invest in more resources or better coaching, better management, better players. From there, then that's just like an endless cycle, just kind of increasing, the value, right, and just continuously making them better. And now that you kind of say it, it makes sense, right? Where maybe it's just another asset to add to their portfolio where, hey, maybe they're not going to be able to convert, all these fans in China or the US super easily to become soccer fans, but they will be, I don't know, maybe purchasing FC Barcelona merchandise, right, related to League of Legends, or just increasing the value just from their viewership because they already have such a large audience, or maybe they're starting to redirect them in different areas and kind of leveraging these different segments that they have, and then from that, maybe because right now, right, they're kind of struggling financially. I think that's a pretty well known fact. Maybe by using these different assets like that, they're like, hey, let's take these smaller assets of our business and find ways to kind of help it, improve our core business, which is, soccer, right? So, no, I think that's a great point. Very interesting. And obviously, I'm looking forward to see what, AJ writes about it. And obviously some more stuff. And knowing that I didn't know you were a fan of esports in the past. So definitely when I have questions or things I want to discuss, maybe you're the guy I'll come to now.
For sure.
Yeah, so let's get into our last topic. As the title of this video states on YouTube and Facebook, check us out there at White Whale Marketing. You can follow us if you haven't already. So the last one, as I said, Nike's doing it, as always. They partnered with Roblox. For those of you who don't know, because I only know about this because I have a little cousin that kind of explained this to me because she's been on it forever. So Roblox is essentially a game or application where people and others create personalities within this virtual universe. So what I kind of think of, and I was kind of discussing this with my little cousin, I think 2 weeks ago, since I'm a little older than her, I think of it as Club Penguin mixed with Minecraft, mixed with almost Sims, I'd say. I think that's kind of a fair way to put it. I think if someone's a little older, I think that kind of makes it a decent picture for you to kind of paint. But then kind of with that, there's games that you can play within it where, I remember my little cousin was doing like pizza games, similar to like Club Penguin, or even kind of doing like mining or developing your properties, etc. So kind of with that, what Nike kind of launched and did in partnership with Roblox was they created Nike Land. So let me just pull up the image here so people can kind of get a better idea. So they created Nike Land. It's kind of designed and inspired by their headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. And then from that, people are going to be able to kind of interact with this new location, right, within the game. So there you can play, I think it was saying in the article on Bloomberg that you can, play dodgeball. What was the other one that you could play? You can play different sports, dodgeball, floors, lava, different things like that. And at the same time, you can purchase Nike apparel for your characters online, right? So it's licensed apparel, kind of similar to, for those that are, gaming fans or NBA 2K fans, when they have, create a player, you're kind of going to Foot Locker, you're buying the different clothing. That's something you kind of outfit your characters with, and it's actual, Nike apparel where I think they said there's going to be things like Air Max sneakers available, and obviously just different like hoodies and caps, backpacks is what it's saying as well, because I guess that's a big part of it. And that's what they've been promoting on their Nike Land website. So that's what it's going to be called. And yeah, it's obviously a major play for Nike because, they filed a bunch of, patents and trademarks for it because they see this as something that's going to be fairly impactful and something that they think shoppers are going to want more of. And the question that Haral, because this is Haral's article for tomorrow's the Sport Marketeer, you can subscribe in the link below. What do you think of this partnership, right? Is Nike on the verge of something great as like a first mover for this, right? Where they're kind of getting involved in the metaverse or a type of metaverse? Or is this something that's just a trend and it's going to fizzle out quickly and, essentially just another way for them to kind of get involved?
Yeah, I mean, there's with this whole metaverse, I feel like it's kind of come out quickly. There, a lot of companies are moving quickly to try and get in on this, and it seems like Nike is one of the first ones to join in on this scale. I think it's definitely interesting to see, them partnering with Roblox. Roblox just kind of recently went public, I believe in March this year. And for a company who's worth $71.9 billion in the market. Roblox.
Roblox is?
Yes, I just looked it up. I was surprised to see too. Their market cap. It's pretty crazy, but it makes sense that Nike would choose to partner with Roblox for their first kind of venture. That's kind of what I originally thought. It's a little weird considering all the options out there, but obviously, the financials kind of speak for themselves. And so I think if Nike sees, this being an opportunity in the future, right? With Facebook and with everyone kind of investing on it, they want to get ahead of the curve, and that's what they're supposed to do. I was reading the article that they're selling shirts. It said they would sell like football boots, pretty much everything you want, right? You can buy it through Roblox, and it's almost similar to and I'm sure Roblox has other companies in it, but the Fortnite skins and the CS:GO skins and all those skins, except nowadays it's more brands going behind them, right? It's not just a fancy design you're buying. You're actually buying a piece of virtual merchandise from Nike or from whoever else. And it's definitely it's like another source of revenue, right? I think these kind of virtual items will be more popular, and Nike sees that. And it's interesting to see them kind of push their virtual merchandise line on kind of the target market of the game. Now, I've never played Roblox, so I can't kind of comment too much about what it is and how fun it is, but I know it's popular with kids. So, I mean, good for them on trying to attract a younger generation. And, I to be honest, I think it'll work.
Yeah. So I completely agree with what you're saying, right? Where it's interesting, right? And I think in regards to everything regarding the metaverse, obviously, I think episode 13. So I think 2 episodes prior to this one, we spoke about the metaverse and obviously Facebook changing to Meta and like what that impact is. And obviously, when I was watching the keynote presentation from Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call them now, some of the things that they're kind of presenting, and I was like, is this really like necessary? Or is that something that's actually going to be feasible? And I was even watching or listening to a podcast this week about it, and they're just kind of even pointing on other holes I didn't pick up on, and I don't know if this is like what Facebook was kind of pushing will make sense. Whereas Roblox, it's an actual game that I think here it's saying it's from Haral. He did this research. 150 million estimated users are currently there right now, and 2/3 of them are under the age of 17. So speaking back to what you were saying earlier, I think in regards to Barcelona, right? Once you become a fan or you're brand loyal to a specific company or organization, club, league, whatever you want to say, they kind of have you, right? And one of the stats or these like cool facts that I like to use, I remember I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was on my bike listening to a podcast as usual, and one of the stats that like a sports executive used was, I think there's a 95% chance if a child is wearing a sports hat or logo at the age of 9, there's a 95% chance that is the same, brand they're repping, right? So let's say it's like an Ottawa Senators hat. If you wear it at 9, there's a 95% chance by the time you're 25, you're still going to be wearing or being a fan of, that brand. So spot on, right? Where they're literally, they're getting right to the future, spenders, right? So I think it's going to have a huge impact, especially if they're able to understand the trends of the younger generation, right? Because that's something I get lost in, where I have to, go talk to my little cousin, kind of have an idea, and she's kind of giving me a list of all these different games that, I should be looking into or, have an eye on. And I think that could be unique, right? Where if they strike a chord, they're like, hey, this younger generation, is obviously our generation, is like, yeah, Nike's cool. Everyone wants Nike. If they can kind of do that as well for the younger generation, and they can start, creating that brand loyalty, even though right now there might not be that much buying power and they're not necessarily seeing the return on the investment right now, because not many kids, probably all kids, don't have credit cards, I should say. Maybe they have their parents, but I think that will pay off in the future. And it is this metaverse of sorts that is already in play and it is feasible. It's realistic. It's there. We see it, right? And I think here's another image. Like it's something that people are already interacting with, and where I find the one that Facebook or Meta is kind of envisioning or promising is something that's much more speculative, right? Where this one's there. My little cousin has been interacting in Roblox in this world for years now, right? So yeah, I think it's very interesting, and maybe we gotta start playing Roblox. Maybe one day we'll do a stream where all of us kind of create a Roblox character, and then we kind of figure it out as we go. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Write that down. Like,
keep a note of that.
Yeah. But I don't know. Do you have any other points on that? Because it's pretty cool, right? Because I know when I was watching the keynote, some of the things that Facebook was promising, I was like, hey, that's kind of scary. Like, I don't know why people would do this, or I don't want society to become like this. Obviously, things happen, but this one I'm fine. It's a game. I know it's probably gonna get kids in their phones a bit more, and it'd be cooler if they maybe play basketball or dodgeball at the park rather than on Roblox. But hey, that's where things are.
Yeah, no, I think it's for the timing, for what kids are into. It's smart from Nike. I think especially if they think that more younger generations will kind of trend towards playing online games compared to going outside and playing a game, that's definitely something in the long term they have to prepare for. And I think they're kind of starting to venture into that through Roblox, through partnerships like this. They're starting to see, okay, what are our opportunities in like video games and in the digital space, right? For a clothing brand that's such, when you think Nike, it's not very virtual, right? I personally, I don't really want to own any virtual Nike merchandise at the moment. And I think they're trying. Sorry?
For now, until you make your Roblox character.
Exactly. No, they're trying to kind of instill that to be almost a normal thing now, buying virtual aspects. Because right now, I think it's still a foreign concept, and there's still a long way to go. But, they need to start somewhere. And, I respect them. It's definitely kind of an innovative new thing that they're doing, trying to create this virtual landscape and virtual merchandise line. And, with the kids, if you're growing up on Roblox and you're 9, 10, 11 years old, you don't see any issue with, virtual hoodies, virtual shoes, right? That's going to be something you kind of learn to grow up with. And, it just creates another source of demand, another revenue source. And, although I might not be, one of the participants, I definitely think it's a good idea for Nike and their kind of long-term vision.
For sure. And to be honest, with everything you're saying, we're about to wrap up, but there's two kind of key points that kind of came out of that. And it's just thinking, right, where I think I already forgot the first one. But anyways, let's jump to number 2. Because you mentioned Fortnite and skins, right? And it's kind of like something that we, maybe you and I personally wouldn't be like, yeah, I'm going to go buy a hoodie online. But, maybe when you kind of think and kind of compare and use like the connections in between them, when we were probably growing up, you wanted to maybe have, I remember like phones. That's what kind of got big when I was in high school, right? Because before people weren't really getting phones in high school. I think like the iPhone stuff was coming up, right? So really you wanted to have the nice phone, right? That's coming to think people were looking at. They're like, oh, you don't have a phone, or hey, you still have, an HTC. Why didn't you switch to iPhone by then we were graduating, right? So that was kind of something that was there, right? That was physical. That's something everyone was seeing. But maybe something that's going to be happening now with this younger generation, because they're spending so much time online and on their phones, it's going to be very dependent on, hey, what's your NFT collection, right? Like, hey, do you have whatever, this ape artwork? There's so many apes now, I don't even know what they are. And then, or even just like, hey, like, what's your swag look like on Roblox, right? Like, are you looking nice with it, or are you kind of just have a generic character, right? Maybe that's something that people are going to start judging on, right? Or like, I didn't really play video games other than like Madden, and even now, like I play FIFA, but I listen to a podcast while I do it. But I know my friends, when they would play Call of Duty, you'd be like a noob, right? If you didn't have the right if you didn't have like the gold gun or the pink guns or anything like that. So I think that's something similar that Nike can kind of make that connection to, where maybe they already like identified that. They're like, hey, like kids right now, they're not necessarily wanting to stun, right? They're maybe trying to be a little more low key. Everyone's kind of wearing the same thing now, like to school. But maybe what really matters is online, right? Like, what's your digital presence like, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty interesting. And oh, then this is the other thing that I mentioned. You're talking about Fortnite earlier, right? And as you were saying it, and you're just kind of discussing, I was thinking about, hey, I wonder if Roblox is free, right? I think that's another thing that we're seeing that's kind of the changing of guard. Whereas when we were growing up, you had to pay for your games, right? You pay for the disc,
Mm-hmm.
you enter it, you go from there. Now because it's online, they have the ability to have in-game purchases, which you were talking about Fortnite. People could buy skins, different things like that, and I'll use Call of Duty as an example because that makes more sense at the moment. Call of Duty, you buy the game, then you buy a skin. Fortnite is where you kind of saw the changing of the guard. Free game to download. Whoa, what? Free game? That's wild. And everyone's playing it. And then you had like in-app purchases where I know I had friends where I'd play with them sometimes on Fortnite and they'd be John Wick. I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, I didn't pay for the game. So I'm like, why not? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough. And I think maybe that's the trend that's going to go now where games are going to be free because it's going to have that low barrier of entry for all these kids to kind of get in on, right? Where maybe as before, like, hey, I didn't have an Xbox or hey, like I don't have $100 to spend on that game every year. But now if everyone can just kind of get in on it, and then the real like test or like the trend is going to be like, hey, what are you wearing within the game? Because you're already in. So now you're going to be judged, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting. And yeah, I might have to start streaming, all these different little games that, my cousin's saying that I got to know a bit more about. And maybe that's going to be a little series, right? I don't know, this comes out on Thursdays, maybe Tuesdays, testing Tuesdays. But
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Any
Yeah,
final?
no. Yeah, just to kind of expand on that concept of like free games, I think it's interesting because you see like there's more free games going out and there's more games who are kind of going free to play. You look at like League of Legends, Dota 2, Fortnite, free
Mhm.
games, right? And these are massively popular games. But at the same time, in the last 3-4 years, you look at Call of Duty, the FIFA, all the sports games. I just bought FIFA 22 last weekend, and I didn't know this, but the PS5 cost it's up $10, right? I think the base FIFA cost for PS4 or the base any game for PS4 is like
Mhm.
80, and then for PS5 it's 90.
Don't
So
remind me.
you see certain games getting more expensive, like
Yeah.
Call of Duty, and who still have, especially FIFA, who still have loads of you know microtransactions within their games, yet they're still getting that initial $90 investment. And
Yeah.
so I think it's kind of interesting to see when people might start to lean towards, if I'm going to spend that $90, why don't I spend $50 and just like get myself like pimped out in a game like Fortnite or Roblox where it's free compared to
Mhm.
spending $90 and then another X amount on packs or skin guns for Call of Duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's definitely kind of two different games that we see nowadays, and it's almost polar opposites. But one thing they do have combined is microtransactions,
Mhm.
unfortunately, and I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Yeah. That's the thing I was saying at the beginning of the podcast. That's why I like doing this stuff because it sparks ideas. So maybe the reason, right, with FIFA, they're still kind of able to charge that much is, look at the people playing it. It's you and I, right? That's what we grew up doing, and even people
Mm-hmm.
older than us. We grew up paying for games, and we're not going to stop now because we want to play FIFA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's an aspect where maybe Roblox identified as, hey, kids aren't going to pay $90 anymore, and that's not we're not necessarily trying to target 25-year-olds to or university students or young professionals to be playing it, right? So I think that's also like the key like feature, right, of it, where they know they can take our money. But shout out to EA Play where I paid $20 and I got all these games just a few months late. Good investment. And the last final thing that I'll say, we don't really need to get into it. Maybe just kind of a little food for thought. Maybe something I'll write down to maybe touch on in the future. Is so with the trend of these games and how people are, like this younger generation is now um, interacting or even just spending. Do you think it would ever see something in the future where for sporting events you would have almost a like a ticket that is so cheap that almost anyone can get into it. But then once you're inside, that's where like things kind of vary, right? Where maybe you're very limited on what you can do, right? If you just get in, you can watch the game at the bar, right? You can do that, but you're in the stadium, right? So they have you in. Or if you pay a bit more, you can, you know, have a hamburger. You're allowed this food. You're allowed fast food. You're the section you're in has fast food. Or hey, you pay the top end, you can do whatever you want. You have a full blown buffet. You have everything, and I think you're starting to kind of see this now, where at least like in Ottawa, there's like a club bell, there's different sections, and there's like a barrier of entry to get into those. But do you think they ever just remove the initial one? Right? I don't know if that makes sense. That's just like a little thing that I was thinking of now.
I mean, there's lots of ways if we kind of see those transactions expand to other industries and other areas. We could see lots of that involved in, not only games, but maybe technology, your iPhones. You can buy the base model, and then you already see it now. It's similar to, you buy the Ultra. But, maybe we could see, just to expand that thought, to another industry, you buy a base phone, and then you have to buy, a limited camera app or something like that.
That's horrible, but it's coming. Now that you say that, that's going to come.
There's lots of, believe me, I don't like microtransactions as much as the next guy, but with your theory on, the sports events, I don't like that one either. I think microtransactions, unfortunately, it's a way to make a lot of money for these companies. It's just at the cost of, the consumer.
Yeah. To be honest, last little thing, the thing of microtransactions, or maybe I'm sure someone one day will do the math, or maybe if I ever have time and I'm maybe can be a little smarter than expected and kind of do the math myself. Maybe there is something where, people go to the game and they spend an average of X amount of dollars, and usually your ticket price is 80%, right? Let's say that's what it is. And then maybe you're spending 20 extra percent on water, beer, etc. Right? But maybe if you kind of swap that, or someone's now paying $20 to get in, or 20% to get in, and then maybe that 80% can now increase because you have different offerings. There were people were like, hey, I'll buy a jersey, or hey, I'll go buy 3 extra beers. And we all know how much beers cost at hockey games, where I think at the new UBS arena in Long Island for the Islanders, I think a beer there is now $17 or $18. Whereas, I thought $11 in Ottawa or $12 in Ottawa was rough, but hey, fair enough. Anyways, there's always a bunch we can chat about. Thanks for coming on episode 15. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sport Marketeer. It's the newsletter that we write in regards to the topics we spoke about. You can see the name down here, and within the description as well, there's a link to our Substack page. So with that, that concludes today's episode, and see you next week.